What are you good for? Which?
No.
You're okay also? Just sit down here.
All right, round one of guys. My name is Alpha. I have spell my name. Omar, as you like to be known as Pando. Omar. And this is Adnan. So there are two panelists. So without further ado, or would you like to, identify your gender for like this is Australia? All right. Cool. Okay. Or you can introduce yourself, like pronoun when if you want to, before you speak, right?
I identify the rookie.
Shut up. Yeah.
Vishal stated in the middle.
Yeah, because you'll be live streaming. You'll be live streaming, so. Can you hear the bell?
We think it's horrible that victims of the Holocaust have to live knowing that there are individuals out there that tell them that their community was never harmed, that 6 million Jews weren't killed. We, coming from the side, think this is horrible, and we think we should stand against these forms of crimes. Our policy is two-pronged and simple. Firstly, we will criminalize mere statements individuals make, whether or not it's on Facebook, whether or not it's in a public platform. Also criminalize groups that are formed based on the perception that the Holocaust didn't happen, or based on the perception that the Rwandan genocide didn't happen. So hate groups that are based on this, we will criminalize them and crack down on them. 2, we will punish you based on the today's debate. Firstly, why it is principally justified to ensure individuals are no longer hidden, as to why victims have to be protected at all costs and they should supersede any form of bigotry. Firstly, with regards to principle, the first question we have to ask ourselves is what determines criminalization? Firstly, the intent of individuals. We think individuals have an active intention to delegitimize people and to hurt them when they deny the Rwandan genocide, when they deny genocide. We liken this to murder. When individuals have the intention to hurt you, we think these bigots at this point in time, individual to hurt you with these words. But even so, we think the government should not be complicit in this. But secondly, with regards to that you create. So even if I live in an ignorant community and I have no intention to harm you, like somehow in some parallel dimension, we think the outcome that you create should supersede that intention. So even if you have no intent, the ability for a victim not to relive that trauma and the ability for us not to have moral ambiguity on an issue that has already been decided should always supersede whatever ignorance you have. And we also think if you're ignorant, like this is something you can plead to in court and like your sentence will be lessened because we already told you that we will law and enforcement because we actively deem that there is an objective and that it has already happened. So there's no ambiguity as to whether or not it happened. There needs to be a law. Second argument with regards to the victims. But first, we need to analyze how harmful it is, right? Because we think there are many problems with genocide that are especially pernicious to individuals. So A, not only are your ancestors raped and harmed, and like literally every second, the identity of your community is based on the Holocaust. So every you think that have been committed to them simply because of these things. But B, your identity is declared illegitimate. So you are defined Holocaust, and we think we need to break away from that. C, your community is taken away, right? So your parents are taken away from you. Your grandfathers are taken away from you. So the people that could have made an impact on your life are actively taken away from you. First level to this argument, minorities have less of an ability to control the discourse around these things. So we think, under our side, they are more likely to control the discourse. We ensure cannot contribute to the harmful sphere of discourse that changes individuals' minds and gives them a bad worldview. What do? We remove that moral ambiguity by setting an objective standard in society. But before I go on, sure.
So statement we interpret it subjectively, right? So how do you make sure that this particular statement is has malicious intent?
Yeah, so I already dealt with this on two levels, right? A, we think even if you're ignorant, we think like you have to be penalized because of the harmful outcome you create, and I'll deal with this later and explain to you why the victim's harm should always supersede any form of ignorance. But moral ambiguity, we set a counter narrative that ensures individuals can no longer do this and contribute to toxic spheres of discourse. But why is the alternative of like calling out not working? A, because we think it's very back and forth. So there's a lot of ambiguity and people have no objective way of determining whether it's true. When we set an objective standard, we also know that these things are wrong and there's no longer that ambiguity. But why is it that victims relive trauma under that side of the house? Because they see people telling them that these things didn't happen when their parents literally died because of what Hitler did. I think that it's high time we stood up for these people. But next, with regards to the breaking down of large hate groups, because we think a lot of time individuals are allowed to fester in society, right? So they are built on this presumption that the Holocaust didn't happen, the Rwandan genocide didn't happen, from things like literal graffiti and like them infiltrating your communities and making sure you know every single day of your life that the Holocaust didn't happen even when you were actively harmed. So that in itself is a harm we don't want to happen, because when you are harmed, we think we'll stand in solidarity with you. But B, we have powers in Parliament that make we think principally that we should always stand with these in solidarity. Even if whatever happens, we think that the victim's ability to feel safe and the victim's ability to not feel harm is something that we should always stand for. We think that it's high time we stood up for individuals that never had a say in the society. For individuals harmed, irreversible, never been prouder to propose.
Yeah, let's welcome leader public.
Alright, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and panel of judges. First thing first, before I start stating my arguments, I would like to look at motion from. We take a step back and look at motion. All forms of genocide in okay. In a sense, criminalization, in which is one person, something like that. You're calling someone a criminal because they broke the law. Because they denied that they did genocide. If you're criminalizing people of the current generation, what use is there? Because hear me out. Generation did not commit. They are not acknowledging that they committed a crime, right? Ancestors. It's not right them who did not that was committed by their okay. Not acknowledging your one moment, your parents' mistake. Parents kid and his parent is murderer. And he denies that he did murdering because he didn't want people to think that he's the son of a murderer. People to think that you're a son of a murderer, which you wouldn't want that, right? You want to be able to cut all ties with them. Anyway, why do you want to? Why do you like focus all your animosity on these people who did not even started anything?
On that point,
Right. Okay. Yes.
would you call out hate speech?
Hate speech.
Hate speech.
As in.
Order.
All right. Okay. So, who are you? Says that? Like I said, the entire nation, or the individual, or what? Okay. So, what the government stated, they were focusing on like the victims, right? Like the victims suffered this and suffered that. Yes, we acknowledge that the victim did suffer, but they suffered because they have the actions of previous generation, not the current generation. Animosity to the next generation. You're trying to bring it forward. Like bad things into the future when you future together.
On that point,
When two groups of people have a clean state, let's just wipe the state clean. Okay? If two groups of people, they do not have any bad past. They could in the future, right? But you're not making the state clean. You're trying to put bad blood from the previous generation on to bring it forward and keep it going on and keep rolling to create more animosity and to create more conflict. Why do you want more conflict in the world? For a peaceful negotiation. We agreed that the thing happened in the past, but we do not look towards it in the future. What we're trying to do is we build towards a better future. We work together. Give me a second, please. We work towards a better future, right? People, they could come together, they start working together. And then who knows, they might become friends and stuff. Not because of bad past. Like, you keep retaining on the bad past and keep victimizing these victims and keep like trying to make them like really helpless or trying to say people who deny that the actions that they did not commit is bad. You're basically trying to do this. Like, for example, what you're trying to do is calling him Arab and wearing a t-shirt that has bomb on it, you're calling him a terrorist. It's basically what it says. Yeah.
we did saying that the Holocaust didn't happen, therefore lessening conflict, right? Because there is no moral ambiguity that surrounds it.
Okay, now you do like acknowledge it. What's wrong with not them not acknowledging it? They're from acknowledge the crimes of the past. Why do you want them to acknowledge the crimes of their fathers, forefathers? Would you tell me why? Okay. If we look at it this way, if we do criminalize these people who of this genocide, then what will happen? You punish them, laws and stuff like that. There will still be radical groups like terrorists. There's still terrorists around. You can't totally rule it. They'll always be there. What you have to do is to try to work together towards
On that point before
work together towards a better. Okay.
it's true that some hate groups will still exist, but when we criminalize them and there are consequences to your actions, that means there are less hate groups, right?
Okay, if you criminalize the IS terrorists, there's still ISIS. There's still a lot of them, and they're still all around the world, and they're getting more and more active. Then the more active they get, right? Okay, so basically, what we're trying to say is that we do not criminalization people who deny genocides because one, they did not commit it, and two, you're bringing like more animosity towards the future. So that concludes my speech. Thank you very much.
Here.
Thank you, Leader of Opposition. Now let's welcome Deputy Prime Minister.
When millions of Jews died in the hands of the Nazis, and when you continuously have these people continuously denying the very act of genocide and denying the deaths of all these individuals, we think you pushed away the suffering of all to begin with, and you already tell people that we don't care because we're just going to these people deny it. We think it has come to the point where these victims have suffered more than enough. Many people have already died. We think many lives have already been ruined. And the more you allow these deniers to continuously walk the streets and put more hate onto these individuals, is the moment where you totally give up and you just push these victims away altogether. I'm going to talk to you on this issue of how do we better deconstruct the harmful outcome, on how we get more support for the victims. Several questions. Firstly, let's actually understand whether these individuals committed the very act and whether that determines whether we should criminalize them or not. I told you why it's completely legitimate for us to criminalize these individuals on the idea of intent, when they do intend to hurt the lives of intent or pushing rock bottom because they think you don't belong there. But also number two, on the very outcome of these actions of these individuals. You posting a statement on Facebook on saying that the Nazis never killed anyone and that all you minorities are just making a lot of noise. We think that is a harmful statement, even if it's just a Facebook status, because people who deny will never relate to the victims. People will never understand how these victims feel and how terrible their lives are. And complicit is the more they will continue to get disenfranchised, they'll continuously get isolated, and there will never be any form of help whatsoever. We think has already told you the harms of the actions of these individuals completely legitimizes us criminalizing them, because it's the only way for us to get any form of deterrence and to actually stop these individuals. But on the second question, will there be more hate? Now, we can see that maybe in the short term, there will be more people get radicalized. Maybe more people will get angry because of this huge law which challenges their perceptions. But we think in the long term, there's a change from these individuals, where you tell them that these victims are also people who have emotions. These are also people who deserve some form of fight for these individuals. In the long term, if we can challenge these ideas and perceptions, that is the trade-off we are willing to take. On a scale, we think there is much lesser hate under side of government, where people are actually scared of going into prison, which is why they wouldn't want to commit and actually deny the very act. That's the trade-off side government's willing to substantives, construct perceptions. So on the first level, let's understand how these perceptions work. Because most of the time, people are born into communities built on these very ideas such as the Holocaust never happened, or it's just a misunderstanding, or they're all just lies, denying the very act of genocide to begin with. We think the more you let them continue and you stay complicit as a government, is the more to grow and fester that hate towards these victims to begin with. We think that's why the hate escalates even more. If you want to talk about which side will there be more hatred, we think under your side, when you don't challenge these people whatsoever, even if you want to call out these people, we think it'll be much less effective, because calling out is something which isn't objective to begin with, right? One side could be right, one side could be wrong. But when the law takes a strong stand and says that this is the law and this is how we're going to do things, we think that is when you actually strike these individuals and we challenge the very ideologies. But secondly, why does a law do this thing best? We talk to you on this idea of deterrence, right? Where you scare individuals and you instill that fear. Yeah, sure, we're challenging your ideologies which you were born into and you never had a choice. But we think it's much better when we challenge those ideologies rather than you let them continuously go out there and spread this hatred and let these victims continuously suffer. Yeah, sure, it's a hardline stance, but we think it's about time we do it. The longer you wait, the more the hatred rises, the hate will escalate even more, and these communities will just destroy the lives of the victims even more. But before that, sure.
How is denying genocide?
Because we think when you deny genocide, it means that you are completely pushing away and neglecting any form of suffering of these victims. When I say the Holocaust never happened, means that the death of these families of people who actually lived their lives as normal people never existed. And I'm just denying the very value of the lives of these victims. We think that is morally abhorrent for you to deny the murder of so many people, but also when you continuously let them deny, we think it's even worse for these victims. Let's take a look at these victims and who they are. We think in a vast majority of cases, these are very small groups of people. These are small communities where most of the time they are the only supporting structures they have for themselves. The only people who love them and the only people who care about them are the people within their community and the people next to them. We think these communities and supporting structures are further destroyed when you continuously neglect the very value of the lives of these individuals. When I say all the Jews that died in the hands of Hitler didn't matter because it never happened, we think it's morally abhorrent for you to do so, right? Because we think these people, although they're minorities, their lives still do matter at the end of the day. We shouldn't just push these people away and just push them to the side. We think these are people who deserve that form of empowerment, the empowerment that side government gives, right? But how does this happen? Sure, we have lesser hate towards these victims, but also when you create a law, it also comes with more help. It comes with more support groups. It comes with more care for these victims, which means that now there'll be much more protection for these victims. We will actually identify the very problem that these people live in. When they have to live in a sphere of trauma where people around them never actually can, people continuously deny the very deaths of their families, we think it's terrible to begin with, but also much worse when you continuously allow them to do so. We think we are the side that elevates the lives of these people. We tell the victims that your lives of your families do matter and that we do have to care for you. And these people who actively deny it should be put behind bars, because if it's the only way of saving these individuals, we think we should do it, because the comparative is still better. We have much lesser hate. People don't deny and devalue the lives of individuals. Under our side, these victims are actually protected.
Now, to close the opening half of the debate, I invite Deputy Leader of Opposition, here.
Ladies and gentlemen, been happening in today's debate. As the opposition, we believe that there are more serious problems. There is a more serious stance that we should take. It does not matter if an individual goes and denies a certain event or a certain circumstances that has happened in history. Understand is, as long as this person is not responsible, ladies and gentlemen, if he did not go and kill innocent Jews, or if he did not go and kill innocent Palestinians or Syrians or whatever, his point of view is irrelevant, ladies and gentlemen. We believe that justice should be given to the criminals, ladies and gentlemen. We believe in that people should be made responsible for their actions. So we believe that rather than punishing those who deny who deny genocide, we believe that you should only ensure that those who committed injustices, those who committed oppression, those who committed the dehumanization and victimization of innocent people, justice should be served, ladies and gentlemen. What happens if you serve justice, ladies and gentlemen? When you serve justice, people are satisfied. They don't care because if let's, for example, a president is responsible for the killing of a family, okay, and only one survivor in this family is living. All this survivor will want is that this president should suffer. He does not care whether, it does not really matter if someone goes and denies that, but he wants to see whether in the end of the day, whether his justice is served, whether this president is made accountable for his actions. So we are going to speak on accountability, ladies and gentlemen, because accountability is very important. Now, further on, let's go ahead. And now, for example,
On that point,
what happens? So please sit. In the end, okay. So on that point, we believe accountability is important. Now, it have already occurred, ladies and gentlemen. And now we are on the road to recovery. What will happen if you criminalize this? What will happen if you keep pointing at someone? You are responsible for this, and you keep on attacking them. Okay, you just did it once, it's okay. Twice, it's all right. Third time, fourth time, and you kick them on the guts, and you say, "No, you are bad. You are bad. Even I am bad." This is going to create more tensions, ladies and gentlemen. We want action and integration of society, ladies and gentlemen. We want you to see us.
on that point,
Please sit. Okay. We want people to successfully integrate and become much more better, and to set aside these differences. When justice is served, this is not a problem. We can work towards a common goal as a society, as a nation, and we can improve a lot, ladies and gentlemen. So based on that, what leads to genocide? It is initial frustrations and tensions. Now, for example, there are two communities, ladies and gentlemen, and one community is more powerful than the other. Indeed, they were excessive in their they have been severe in their actions. But now, what we should understand is that the same circumstances can repeat, ladies and gentlemen, when you go to criminalize, when you go and dictate terms to them. For example, what happened in Myanmar, ladies and gentlemen, it's currently happening.
on that point,
The Myanmar president mentioned that, show me a nation that violence against human rights, basically those who are not violated human rights, then I will stand up for for our actions. Based on this, irrespective of whether you criminalize, you can people, but you cannot go and criminalize all the statesmen or state actors, because you do not have the jurisdiction, and you cannot. It's going to cause unnecessary problems. Saddam Hussein had a real, he was a tyrant, okay, he was an oppressor. Okay, so what did the United States do? They said, you are criminal, you are killing people, and we say killing is bad. So what happened, ladies and gentlemen? The US invaded Iraq with troops on the ground. And what happened? They systematically destroyed Iraq, and till today, Iraq is suffering. Till today, Syria is suffering. The Iraq matter has escalated to Syria, and this Syrian matter is going to escalate and destabilize the entire Middle Eastern region, ladies and gentlemen. We believe that rather than attacking people who are and criminalize people who are denying genocide, we believe that justice should be served. So as long as justice is served, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what that person says, because he's just an individual on Facebook. Go ahead and block him. Okay, they will stay within the echo chambers, and they are not going to improve anything whatsoever, ladies and gentlemen. We don't give a damn. As long as your justice is served, as long as the one who killed your parents is suffering in jail till the end of his life, we are happy, ladies and gentlemen. We don't care. And also,
on that point,
yeah,
when governments remain complicit in allowing victims' suffering to be trivialized, how is this?
Ladies and gentlemen, how does a successful government run? Vote for your election, you vote for your representatives. It means that you're on the road to recovery, right? So your views and aspirations are going to be fulfilled anyhow. So let's remember, these people keep on saying about the Jews. How did the state of Israel form, ladies and gentlemen? It formed by the donations received by Germany. They received more than $1.6 billion initially. Initially, it formed the state of Israel. That means there are people who acknowledge genocide. There are people. We are human beings. We have a nature to be a lamb or a tiger, and we have people who have shown the innocent nature of the caring nature of a human being, and they have gone up and they step up and they say, irrespective of, we don't care whether these people don't agree to it. We agree, and we are willing to help. We want to solve the problem. What you are trying to do is you're trying to attack everyone, because when you try to criminalize one person, you're going to criminalize the entire group. Yeah.
criminalize individuals that don't acknowledge that the genocide happened. So all your arguments about Israel and people who step up and take culpability for those actions don't happen because we only criminalize people that trivialize it.
Okay, thank you. Okay, it's like this, yeah? There are thousands of protests, okay? From the time ISIS has been attacking, but innocent Muslims have stepped up and they have been protesting. But the mainstream media has never highlighted this. People fail to acknowledge this, and still population is being attacked as a terrorist or a terrorist group who are capable of attacking, because you don't care. You look at this negative aspect and you attribute it to an entire group. So we believe that criminalizing will not do. We believe that you should see for the reconciliation processes, you should see effective judicial processes, and you should see that successful integration can be carried out. Because in the end of the day, there's 1.6 billion Muslims, and only a minute percentage, like some 0.0%, are only committing terrorism. But in the end of the day, for example, US, Donald Trump wants to register all these Muslims, irrespective of their, after all, they are saying time after time that I have nothing to do with this. Okay, now let's go back and we'll see, refer to the Belgium attacks. What happened in Belgium? When there was a terrorist attack, people started celebrating, deserve it. So we are creating an environment of hatred, and hatred will never cease hatred, and we have to step up and just ensure that justice is served, and that will solve all the problems later. Thank you.
Here, here.
Thank you, dear. Oh, open the closing half of the debate. I invite members for the government.
Yeah.
So first off, I'm going to start off with an extension on the opening government's point that how hate groups fester and thrive on such political views such as genocide denial. The opposition may want to claim things such as free speech, that people have a right to say what they want and not get persecuted for it. But free speech only goes as far as it does not harm the rights of others, that it does not cause emotional distress of others, that it does not make light of the plight, that it does not make people's truths into lies. And here's why that we can't allow this kind of genocide denial to be covered under free speech. Now, side serves to protect and give confidence to these mass murderers, people who are in positions of power in governments, people who ordered their troops to massacre people en masse. They think by leaving these deniers and hate groups alone, hate groups such as anti-Semitic groups, they feel secure in propagating their propaganda, falsehood, that they can say whatever they want without suffering the consequences. They can say, 6 million Jews never died. They were all telling it never happened. They're all trying to play the victim. Now, when you leave these people alone, they gain confidence, they grow in strength, they attract more people, they grow in numbers. When they grow in numbers, prominence. And when you gain prominence, you become a sizable political force to be reckoned with. Because now you have a lot of voices clamoring for the same thing, that everything was all a lie. The Armenian genocide never happened. The Holocaust was all a fabrication by Jews. And people wielding such power that builds itself on denying the identities and experiences of people experiencing death, torture, beating, starving, mistreatment. People are propagating, who are ordering these mistreatments, these killings, mass killings of people, they feel secure in what they just ordered, the deaths of 1 million people. But no big deal. I've got a big support group that thinks I didn't. And so they will continue on with their atrocities. They'll ignore other people because they still have people who are supporting their actions and think that they're not actually doing anything wrong, or that those killings never happened. Now, next, when you have a large group of people spouting falsehood and propagating lies, eventually you're going to start influencing public perception. Now, truths can be buried under a slew of lies. They keep saying the lie over the truth. Many, many times, 100 voices eventually drown out the one person who speaks the truth. So, when falsehood overwhelms what actually occurred, people start being convinced that survivors, descendants, or actual surviving victims of genocide are crime victims. They are traitors of a conspiracy. People have seen their loved ones taken away from them. They've seen people starved. They've seen people in death camp shot and executed. Yeah. Now, before I continue, yes.
Now you plan to criminalize genocide denial, right? Implement this in an impartial manner, because if you look back in history, a lot of people have committed genocide, and everyone has their own part.
What we are criminalizing is the denial of genocide. If you're denying genocide, then we'll lay down the law according to the severity of actions. Law can be carried out impartially. I don't see how we can't do that. All right, now continuing. Next thing is that the victims will face emotional distress and discrimination. Armenians in Turkey still face prosecution and are seen as second-class citizens simply because Turkey refuses to recognize the genocide of over 1 million Armenians. Thus, Armenian civilians are seen and treated as liars, propagators of falsehood, seen as playing the victim, or stay true to their history. Remember their ancestors who murdered, killed, en masse. Now, what happens when you're treated as liars for saying the truth? You start experiencing emotional distress. Let's imagine for a second that you are a 90-year-old Holocaust survivor. You've gone through death camps, you've seen loved ones executed, you've been starved, beaten, shot, stabbed, tortured, and now people are calling you liars. That all of that never ever truly occurred. You're just making up a story that 6 million people never done. What you're going to feel is pain, distress. You're going to feel fear. You're going to feel sad that people are denying that all of this ever happened. You're going to be very confused. Why are these people denying this genocide? Why are people denying these atrocities? Now, next, the terming of criminalization of genocide is necessary because it is a term that is useful for the victims to attract assistance. Rohingya genocide in Myanmar, treatment of them as citizens, and mass and murdered. Yeah. So when you term the systematic mass killing of ethnicities, is one that immediately attracts international attention or mass attention. Now, human rights groups will call for boycotts. They'll push for protests. Countries such as the United States will push for also call for economic sanctions on the countries committing these genocides. And conscientious citizens of the country that the government become aware of the government wrongs and begin to. When you have all these forces putting pressure on you, then you're going to be less likely or less incentivized to order the mass killing of ethnicities, because you're going to lose out on economy. Your government is going to become unstable because people rebel because they see what you're doing is wrong. Your progress is going to triple because people are abandoning their jobs to mass protest in the streets against what you have done, and so on. Therefore, it's really about to propose.
Thank you. Now I invite member of.
this way.
Ladies and gentlemen, we live in a society where offense is more often manufactured. Offense is more often treated as something that's offensive. Even when I question the legitimacy of something, it would offend a few people. It would be subjective on most cases, ladies and gentlemen. And in this case, we think that can be highly problematic when I merely question whether genocide happened, whether it happened or not. It would offend a few people, it would offend a particular group of people, and that would put me in trouble. And that would stop me from even questioning, even trying to find out what's wrong with these things. So what I'm doing is I'm going to talk about a few extensions and also like a few rebuttals about like how you're talking about hate groups, gain prominence, continue atrocities. But we have to recognize, if me telling that you have to go and kill all these Jews, that is already criminal in the status quo. That's already something that is wrong, and we already stop that. But this debate is about denying something. Historically saying that genocide did not happen, I'll take later, is bad because now it's just the thing that I believe it did not happen. Instead, I'm not saying that you should go and kill these people. So we think that even if this group gain prominence, you will always have counter-denialism group who would say that it happened, who will provide evidence on why it happened and raise more awareness. And we think that is particularly important, and I'll engage with that in my extent. Also, about how this, we talk about Rohingya genocide, but we have to realize that this is a really complex situation. And how they were involved, to how did they even come into this country, the Burma, and how they committed atrocities against the local, and we have to recognize that as well. So merely by saying that this is genocide will be also harmful to that locals as well, the domestic people who were harmed by these changes. We think that when it comes to these complex issues, you can't just talk about genocide, and you have to talk about all these complex intersectional issues that are involved in that. So about how freedom of speech is limited by such laws, ladies and gentlemen, and how it happens that opinions that the person really believes will be suppressed. This person speak regarding this issue, and we think that you have the right to have an intellectual freedom to believe in certain things or even question certain things. If this person truly believes that one genocide did not happen, we think that he has the intellectual freedom to doubt that, he has been to question that, and we think that is completely fine. If we think you suppress these people, criminalizing his own act of questioning or saying that I believe that it didn't happen, I deny that it didn't happen because I'm not satisfied with the evidence that you have, ladies and gentlemen. And that is bad for this person. If you are trying to protect these people, I think that these particular group of people who are skeptical about the dominant narrative that our history is really abhorrent. And secondly, on second level, on how you are also suppressing the intellectual discourse that can take place. So usually when also be bad for people who give credence to genocide, criminalizing would actually allow more opinions to come in, would allow more people to engage with each other. And like all these Facebook comments, all these Facebook posts, I think you would also have a section where you can comment on why I believe that. I think that leads to more discussion, right? I think when you always have a plethora of views, that is inherently better than completely denying these things, simply saying that you are not allowed to say that genocide did not happen and that you're merely suppressing these things to begin with. And also about all this Armenian genocide, I think that when you question these things, when you say this didn't happen, it leads to more research, it leads to more finding out evidence whether this thing happened or not to prove to the world that these things really happen. So we think that it is highly important to, on a certain level, for us to have a few people who are skeptical about dominant narrative that we spread in a society, because only then you will encourage and with more evidence, more research into proving that this group of people are wrong, that it is actually happened. We have evidence, we have the things, and we think that can be actually a good thing for all these people who want to prove that the genocide happened in Germany. Take one from the closing.
How
regards people is not, no matter what form of discourse is it. How then do you justify your form of discourse being an intellectual discourse at all? Are people okay with it?
Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, in this case, when I think you are questioning these people, right, like whether they are right or not, when the very fact you're making these things criminal, when you're saying that this thing, you're questioning these or making such statements bad, we think that even, for example, if you look at our country, right, like if you question a Bumiputra's rights, the very fact when you are saying that it's a crime for you to do so, you are merely also suppressing these people to merely share their views, to merely question making any statements at all, even if it's not these people, even if it's just a statement that I think that this is not right, I think it should be the other way around, or this is the other flip side of the story. I think now you are stopping these people's things, because now you have a particular group of people who will be incited to attack these people, who will be incited to actually suppress this individual and bully this individual. It's a crime, and we think that what you are doing is a crime. I think at the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen, you would make echo chamber where believing that this whole idea that this whole genocide did not happen or it happened, you are really suppressing into this one. You're not diversifying the opinions which truly matter for us to be able to come up with. And also another thing about this, who is criminalizing this? Important for us to know whether who is criminalizing this genocide denialism, whether it's a nation itself or an international group. We think that if it's a nation itself, I think that Rwandan government criminalized the denial of Tutsis genocide, right? Tutsis also retaliated by committing genocide against the Hutus. Very complex situation, and in this case, when you're picking sides, you are also deepening these divides in a post-conflict society. On this government is on our side, and these things will, this group of people would feel insecure, they will be excited to attack or even lead to escalation in tension, conflict society, because there will be a biasness, there will be picking of sides, and that is inherently bad. And even if it's international group, I think there are always personal agendas, so whatever. Such criminalizing denialism, and the other countries saying no, like Germany and Turkey, regarding the Armenian genocide, you're merely leading to international conflicts, you're merely leading to moves wrong. So we think that it's okay for us to question the legitimacy of this, because you merely want to know more about it, and so helping these people to give more credence to the genocide that takes place. I'm proud to
Thank you, member for the side government. We close the case from side government. Thank you.
The framework of this debate is majorly on what has happened during the Holocaust time and what is happening right now within the Rohingya community. Relate with that better, I'm going to start off with defining what form of genocide we are denying, which is the violence struck upon genocide is a form of violence struck upon humanity. This is a scar that tends to stay. This is a scar that tends to repeat its actions with it. So, coming to the point of the Rohingya genocide, which is currently going on. The opening government talked about complacency and how it leads to, how it leads to people in echo chambers, people who are in denials being more in denial. They're being complacent with that. They're saying, oh, your family died, okay, that's cool, what's up? So this is what they're complacent with, and this is what they're going to stay with. They're not going to acknowledge that you have been hurt. They're not going to acknowledge that you have been deprived. You have been structurally harmed within those point of time. That means they have, they're denying a part of history that is crucial to both your and their development, because at that point of time, both your generation, both your civilization developed at the same time as these people would have had a chance to develop, which was deprived of them. So, talking about the material deprivement of these people. These people, upon whom the genocide is committed, they usually have more material deprived from them, which was their rightful access, which they would have rightful access to. for saying right now the people in Myanmar, they're being deprived of being as a valid form of citizen, and that being a form of narrative right now. That being a form of narrative right now, we think it is really harmful because these people, country are being oppressed, are being hurt, and no one's caring at all because it's okay with saying like, okay, you're not even like Burmese people. Go to hell for all I care. This is what the narrative right now is within the Burmese community of people. They're saying you're people from the other country. They just came in here, snuck in here, you stay in here. So that's about it. But they're actual real people. They're on the ground. AJ has already done countless reports on them and how they're being hurt, and they came out to voice out and everything. But no one's giving them things that are getting pushed under, and these are the kind of problems that are getting pushed under, and no one's actually noticing this kind of problems. And what happens when we are okay with not criminalizing genocide is that we are okay with these people who are actually denying these things, no matter the evidence, no matter the hard proofs of the death camps or the photographs or personal diaries, revelation coming out. They're okay with denial regardless, and these are the people who will never have forms of discourse. We already agreed to that. We already came to that point. So whatever form of intellectual discourse that they're talking about does not happen. So what happens? Hate groups occur more, get more freedom in telling. That eventually leads to more harming of individuals, which is currently what is happening in Myanmar right now. No one is caring, and the Nobel Peace Laureate, Prime Minister for Peace Laureate, she's actually not doing anything about the situation right now, and that is the form of complacency that we tend to break. We want to break by criminalizing this form of consumption. So, the burning of villages. These people are being hurt on the ground. These people are being hurt on the ground, and their prime minister, who was elected as a peace person, who was supposed to harm clashes between religious and ethnic groups. She did not do anything. Yet she's just saying, no, nothing is happening. The capital's all right. Everything that's going on, that's like cool and everything. So we don't really have to worry about anything. So the criminalization should take place at first as a step in order to set a form of justice to these kind of people that are being hurt exactly like you. So before I move on here.
Soldiers are afraid of PTSD because he denied anything. He returned what's left of his sanity from his broken heart. When he was just following orders, and he does not have a choice. He's also suffering as well as a victim.
That relevancy to add with the genocide relevancy, I find it. And so, relevancy to this debate, they have talked about how hate speech condemning, the opposition has talked about how hate speech condemning is a form of stopping intellectual discourse condemning. We already told you that that is not the state. And they also talked about current generation not being liable for all of this. We tell you that you're part of a society and a civilization that has benefited from this kind of past. So you do have some form of liability when it comes to the recovery of these people who are harmed in the genocide process, right? So by that, we should justify people who are denying right now to at least recognize in a form of strictness that what they're doing isn't a good thing. They're not going to get away with it. And these people who they're denying access to their materialistic needs or all of these needs that they deserve access to, rightfully deserve this, because not anything under their state's code does anything better, because now we have already proven to you that complacency is valid and it's existent, and that is what is creating more problems in the
To what extent are you going to penalize people and say that you are responsible for such actions?
It's necessary. You're killing people anyways. You're killing people right now in Myanmar. So to be okay with that and keep on being okay with that until stops you, and eventually people forget it and say nothing ever happened. We're telling you that nice things happen for you to make changes. If you keep on denying that things happen, then you're gonna okay with saying anything can happen. Right? You're gonna say anything can happen, guys. We don't know. You're just the Donald Trump of this is in the way that you're just saying something happened. You don't have any credibility to back that up. You're just saying something happened. You know it happened. That's it. you don't have any valid form of. We tell you that realizing and criminalizing these forms of genocide deniers would mean that we are actually, people are actually noticing that this genocide is occurring, that this kind of people are harmed by genocide, are being deprived of such and such materials and need they actually deserve access to. And so we need to protest by all means that they should be criminalized for a better future.
Thank you, Gulfway. I invite the last debate opposition leaders up for the opposition side and also for the whole debate. Here.
In the case of Rohingya, we believe that people in Burma do notice the atrocities, but still this genocide still happens, the civil unrest still happens. The reason why is because sometimes the situation is very, very complex, right? The government in Burma does not turn their does not ignore the problem actually, but it is very sensitive. Like we all can make a common ground on this, that it is because of the religious tension, but also because of the racist discrimination involved, right? And this tension has been since centuries, and it is not just Burmese citizens who cause atrocity to these people, but it is also from the Rohingya, who are stateless people who migrated who migrated to this country, also caused the problem, right? They are the one who started first, and that is how the problem escalated into this. But the problem in this debate is that they ignore how media comes into play, and media, the biasness of media is not acknowledged, right? Sometimes we believe that it is not something that you can just criminalize and solve the problem. It will not end there, right? But what we believe is that a certain healthy discussion should be there, and people do know, and people who in fact will not become denial after all, right? So this is something that we should we want in this debate, but we don't think that side government, the entire bench, did not prove it. But let me deal with this in my clashes, right? So is criminalization necessary? And secondly, whether or not this hatred will proliferate if the government does not take action. But first and foremost, let's take a look at, is criminalization necessary? The entire government bench stands on the ground that, well, mere statement about the denial of genocide is actually very, very harmful enough. But we say that it is very questionable, because sometimes, number one, right, how do you define which statement is offensive enough to which people? So in that case, we don't think that you cannot make objective platform to decide what statement is offensive at the end of the day. Because if we follow their logic, right, we have to punish people who say something that seems very, very radical, that could offend other people, that could victimize other people. For example, the racist statement, it actually victimizes other people. It may eventually make people to it makes people to even think about to suicide themselves, right? Sometimes it can be that extreme. But however, the reason why the government still allow this sort of statement or whatever you want to say can happen is because of the freedom of speech, right? Because freedom of speech can only be limited only when that speech harms the
right to life of other people. Under this case, we don't see any life is being harmed. You just say what you believe, right? But you believe you are entitled to your opinion at the end of the day. But however, they believe that this sort of hatred will be proliferate like a malignant cancer, right? But it is not true. The reason why is because there will be a comment or there will be a discussion. You are opening up to more discussion about that person's statement in the comment of Facebook post, right? So you can see a lot of healthy discussion. But under your case, if you just criminalize or ban it totally, what will happen is that those kind of healthy discussion or very valuable information will not be revealed at the end of the day. Under your case, people who are in denial will still be in denial, and therefore the problem will still remain, right? So we think that this is rather problematic. And they talk about how, you know, if this hatred are actually propagated by a certain political figure, it will be even worse because people tend to believe this sort of fabricated story when it is being expressed by the leader, for example. We think that the fact that people in the society are not totally irrational to believe all this sort of radical statement, right? If that's the case, then we would is something that is good, but we don't think so, right? Because the reason why there are a lot of rational people who counterbalance all these sort of things exist, and we think that they are very important because they are actually the one to correct the belief of the people who might otherwise believe all these statements being expressed in the Facebook post. But secondly, right, let's talk about the practicality of this mechanism, because what the entire bench basically believe that, well, if you post or if you make such a statement, then it is deserved for you to be in jail or be punished. But the thing is, who's gonna take the action? Is it International Court of Justice, or is it UN or whoever, right? We don't think that there's a clear line of who's going to take it, right? And it is problematic. Assuming that one of the international organizations do take such action, we think that you are actually intervening others' country, the right to sovereignty and the right, their rights as a government to rule their own country, right? Because under your case, it is very, very impractical to begin with, because you basically want the government to actually survey all these, or to make a surveillance of all these Facebook posts, and even when people make a certain things that may otherwise offensive, you just want to criminalize them, right? We think that it is too arbitrary to begin with. But however, we think that
there's an objective difference between questioning and denying the death of 1.5 million Armenians. All discussions you have are toxic because the people monopolizing these discussions are the actual deniers of these genocides. Please explain.
But the thing is, even if at the end of the day you don't believe such historical event did happen, you are entitled to your opinion. Because a lot of time, just because I don't believe in the resurrection of Jesus doesn't mean that I need to be punished, right? Because under your case, we people, the reason why we are unique is because we interpret things differently, and we live in a society where things are a lot of things are questionable, are very biased. We still are allowed to believe in whichever one we think whichever historical event is true, right? It's up to us. However, under your case, why specifically this genocide will cause this newer generation to be in such a traumatic position, right? We don't think that it's actually happening, right? Because if you look at Black Lives Matter, for example, we think that there are a lot of people making this racist about it and still does not take action, because it is your right for you to do it as long as it actually doesn't effectively harm other rights to life, right? This is what we are standing for, because at the end of the day, we don't think that people in denial under their model will be able to see or will be able to enlighten with the truth. But under our case, we are making sure that these people are enlightened enough. But second of all, we are also making sure that we are preserving the essence of democracy, which is why we are proud to propose.
Right. Thank you. Great. Next questions and
Please exit the room.
let's come back.
Yeah.
Jangan tiru.
Sorry.